Hi, this is Mike from Stagecoach Road Sewing, and we're here to demonstrate how to service your Singer 1591. This is part 2. The first part dealt with the feed dogs and the hook, bobbin, and bobbin case. In this episode, we're going to take the faceplate off here and look at the needle bar linkage underneath. To take the faceplate off, you want to loosen this screw up just a little, then lift, and it'll slide right off of there. This has your tension assembly on it, which we'll look at later. As you can see in here, there's a big counterweight that goes around and around. It's attached to a shaft that goes all the way back here to the hand wheel. That's what drives your needle bar linkage. You can see that this linkage here is attached to that counterweight. As it goes around and around, it lifts your needle bar up and down. This is kind of oily looking inside. This machine was locked up when I got it with old varnished oil. I applied some kerosene to break it up and free the parts. Now you can see it moves freely. I'll clean that up before I put it on the website. The first thing you want to do again is clean it out. You want to get in there with your brush, get in behind everything, clean everything out really well, and then vacuum it. Get all the dust out. If you leave any dust in there, it's going to get sucked into the moving parts when you oil it, and that will cause wear. So the linkage, we'll get a drop of oil here where the needle bar goes up and down. It'll get a drop of oil here at the top, which lubricates this tube that it slides up and down in. It'll get a drop of oil in this little oil hole here, and I always add an extra drop of oil right here in the joint. Here where it attaches to the counterweight, you'll put a drop of oil there. You put a drop of oil here on the pressure foot lifter bar. Just one drop of oil there, one drop of oil here where it pivots. And if you can see in this hole here, the take-up lever pivots right here. You want to put a drop of oil on that, and right here there's a little access hole, a little oil hole. And I use an oiler that's got a long spout on it, so I can get down into these holes and put a drop of oil right where it belongs. And there's another oil hole here to reach in behind the counterweight and put a drop of oil. And there's a hole right here, which is really important because this oils the bearing where this shaft rides. There's a bearing here, and there's a bearing at the other end, and another oil hole here at this end, which will also take a drop of oil. One drop of oil here, one drop of oil here to lubricate your shaft. Tension assembly is mounted on a split screw. It's actually split all the way down, and you'll see that as I open it up. The first thing that's going to come off is this little knob here. And since the tension assembly can be really confusing, it's always best to lay out your parts in sequence to help you remember where they go. There's a pin here in the bottom of this thumb nut that goes into the number disc behind it. So you have to kind of push down that spring-loaded number disc so you can turn the nut off. Then the number disc slides off, and then a little retainer washer. It slides down over that split screw, and it has a little protrusion here at the top that you want to face out towards you when you put it back on. We'll mention that again when we do it. After that is the spring, then the pressure disc washer, I don't know what you call it actually. It's a little disc-shaped washer with a plus and minus sign on top. You'll recognize it when you see it. Then you have your tension discs, disc 1, disc 2, and then that's really all you need to take off. You don't have to take off this piece or the check spring. And as you can see, the screw that it was mounted on is split. Down inside of this split, there's a tiny pin that releases the tension when you lift the presser foot. When you lift the presser foot, it pushes on the back of that little pin, which pushes the tension discs apart and releases the tension. If you tip that, sometimes that little pin will fall out. You don't want to lose that little pin, so keep an eye on it. If it falls out, just pick it up and put it back in. Your tension discs need to be clean and smooth. Check it carefully for any thread scoring or any little burrs. Sometimes you'll find bits of rust on them. If you have burrs or rust, you can use a little fine steel wool to polish them out. Any kind of burrs or rough spots are going to catch your thread and change your tension, which is not a good thing. Also check for oil or any stickiness on it. If there's oil or old sticky dried up oil, a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a rag will take that right off. So we're ready to reassemble, and your tension discs go on concave side. The first one goes concave side toward the machine, and the curved face facing out towards you. Disc number 2 is going to want to face this disc, so it's going to go on the opposite direction with the concave face facing out. Next, the tension, that transfers the spring pressure to the tension discs. The spring goes on big end first, and the small end, you'll see, has the end of it goes between the two sides of the split screw. Okay, then that little retainer washer, remember I mentioned that protrusion, that goes to the top and with the curved part pointing out towards you. And then the number disc goes on over that, and then your knurled thumb nut, which has a tiny little pin here that goes into any one of this series of holes all the way around the number disc. When you push this on, since the split screw tends to spread a little bit, you'll probably have to use a little bit of pressure to get it started. But be very careful to get it on straight, because if you cross thread it, it can strip threads and cause you all kinds of trouble. Okay, once that's on a ways, we're going to preset the tension. Take a piece of thread, lay it between the tension discs, all the way down to the pin in the middle, and then see how it feels. Well, it's already a little bit of tension there. See how it feels when we I'm going to loosen it up a little bit. Okay, set your number disc at around 3.5. That is lined up with that, the line above it. And then hold it back with a little bit of pressure. Turn your thumb screw down, half a turn or so. And then it should catch in one of those holes. Sometimes you have to work with a little bit to get it straight so it goes into the holes. But once it's in the hole, then when you turn your nut out here, it turns the number disc. So we have it set at 3.5, which is a pretty average place for sewing sheeting type materials. And that tension feels just a little bit tight. You turn it down to 0. It's good at 0. When it's at 0, your thread should pull almost entirely freely. And when you go up higher to 7 or 8 or 9, it should be really tight, which it is. So let's see. So 3 or 3.5. I'd say that's just a little bit too much tension. I'm going to back it off just one hole here. Yeah, that feels better. So you should have a couple of pounds of tension there on your thread. And then when you sew, of course, you can adjust it up or down. But once you get a couple of pounds of pressure on your tension there, then turn it to 0. Make sure it still moves pretty freely there. Turn it up to high. It should be pretty hard to pull. That's pretty close, I'd say. So there you have it. While you have it off, it's good to clean this and polish up the front a little bit. And then it hangs right back here on this screw. The take-up lever goes through this slot, and it hangs on there. Tighten your screw up, and you're done.